Good afternoon. Today is the 11th of December and I've decided to make a video about the top 5 most irritating things I find about modern cars. I'm not necessarily suggesting in some of these that some cars haven't got quite good solutions to common motoring problems, or that one particular manufacturer is more kind of bad for some things than others, which is why we're going to look at some of the things in both these cars, my lady wife's 2014 MG3 style and my mother's 2017 Mercedes-Benz C200 Sport Estate. I think this is in order, counting down from the things which are least annoying to the most annoying. But yes, 5 things that I dislike about modern cars. We'll start off with things to do with the engine of the car. This Mercedes actually represents it quite well, because look at this enormous plastic cover. It covers virtually the whole thing. I mean, all I can see are the coolant bottle, the oil filler cap's buried in the middle of the cover, there's the dipstick, and the washer fluid is is here underneath all this other stuff. I mean, you're going to have to take ages to take all these covers off before you actually do anything. They don't really serve any purpose, apart from, I think, making the engine bay look slightly better, or maybe not, or perhaps it's just to discourage you from working on the car yourself, because it looks all so complicated that you have to take it back to the main dealer. I really don't like these plastic covers, and also a lot of manufacturers use plastic parts in an engine that are unnecessary, such as plastic inlet manifolds. Why on earth do you need a plastic inlet manifold? I suppose it's to do with cost and saving weight, but they don't last as long as proper inlet manifolds. Why do you want a plastic one? Anyway, that's number 5 on the list. Let's have a look at the next one. Right, number 4. I shall turn the car on and I will show you. So, turn the car on. I don't know why the wipers are on. I have to turn those off, I think. Yeah, so don't let the system distract me. I might have to just mute that 1 second if that turns on. But the next thing is, if you look at these controls here, the heater controls for this car are sort of half buried in the touchscreen. Now, there are lots of cars where this is far worse. The MG HS that I drove last week had just one button and looked a bit like that one, which allowed you to access the controls onto the touchscreen. This car doesn't actually have a touchscreen. It's controlled by this rotary dial down here and the mouse thing, which is another annoying thing. But if you were to, say, do this, then you'd have to go onto the touchscreen up here and operate it there. Why do you need to do that? Why do they make these buttons so small and so difficult to find when you want to change the temperature? And as well as this, these aren't exclusively the controls for the heating and ventilation. There's a menu button in the middle of here as well. The buttons to operate other functions are quite small too, and they're all the same colour as the dashboard. I mean, I suppose it's aesthetically pleasing, but it's really not very user-friendly. The HS, the Peugeot 5008, the DS3 Crossback, the list just goes on of all these cars that have taken the normal climate controls and heater controls out of here, or made them just really fiddly and put them up there. I don't really see the reason for that. I think that's really quite annoying. Next thing is electronic handbrakes. In this car, the parking brake is right down there. You can sort of barely see it. What's wrong with having a normal handbrake just here? what's wrong with it? There's probably room for it here, and you know, I know that you'd lose some storage space for you know, extra cup holders and things. But what's wrong with a normal handbrake? The electronic handbrakes on cars, I find, just get more and more annoying. Admittedly, this is a Mercedes-Benz, and so, you know, they've had very, very irritating handbrakes for quite some time. And, you know, the gear lever in this car is up there, where it, you know, it should really be down here. But why do you need to make a more complicated system for one which works perfectly well and will probably cost more in servicing? I don't understand it. I mean, some automatic handbrakes do work quite well. The one in the MGHS and the ZS is pretty good, but I don't see why you can't just have a normal one. Right, number 2 on the list. I'll demonstrate it right now. It's the number of bongs and beeps that you get on modern cars that are completely unnecessary. I don't really need a warning chime to remind me my keys are the ignition. A lights or warning buzz is fine, but the MG ZSEV and the MGHS that, you know, we filmed over the last couple of months or so have had so many warning bongs, particularly connected with the keyless entry. And I don't think necessarily keyless entry is bad. I was going to put this on the list, but I've just sort of thought about the keyless entry that I've used in the MGHS and my mother's Mercedes, and actually they're quite good systems. They're a bit annoying in terms of replacing the batteries and things like that, but you know, they're really not too bad when they work properly. What is annoying is the beeps and bongs that people put in relation to the keyless entry, which just don't need to be there. The number of times of the ZSEV, the HS reviews, we were just confounding things by getting in and out of the car and trying to silence the bongs was just ridiculous. You know, I'm not a fan of these kind of things. A lot of the time, they're just not necessary. You're pretty intelligent, most people who own a car, and you can see if the keys are the ignition. Normally it's in your pocket in a keyless entry car, or you have a place where you put it. You don't need an extra warning bong to remind you to take the key with you. And if you're filming, it's just an absolute nightmare. So that's number 2 on the list. What's the most annoying thing that I find about modern cars? But number 1 most annoying thing I find about modern cars is this. The tyre inflation kit. Oh my gosh, where do I start with this? The reason why I think a lot of manufacturers have got rid of spare wheels over the last few years is to do with EU emissions and economy figures, because they do add sort of weight. But if you really need a spare wheel or something to fix a puncture, the tyre inflation kits are virtually useless. This particular car, my friend Alan, who was driving it at the time, got a puncture in it, and he tried to use the inflation kit. It didn't work. It's just completely useless. I mean, there's enough room in there for a spare wheel, and you know, MG will, I think, sell you one these days, but I don't understand why more cars can't come with one. My Seat Toledo, that is 3 years newer than this car's got a spare wheel. It's a full-size one, and that's more economical than this one. I just don't understand why you can't have a basic thing as a spare wheel, although the manufacturers will charge you hundreds of pounds to have a spare wheel. It should be standard. You know, sometimes you pay more for a spare wheel than you would do just to pick up a banger car. I think that's pretty bad. So, you know, I love modern cars and I love classic cars. I drive modern cars most of the time. I also drive classic cars, and I think they're great too. And so, you know, we will do at some point in the future a video as to the 5 things I really love about modern cars. But at the moment, you know, having spent a time recently, particularly with, you know, doing 3 modern reviews back to back when we were up at Summit Garage in Dudley, I could just kind of see that the sort of seeds of this idea were kind of coming through, and you know, they have. And so, you know, it's not limited to one manufacturer. limited MG or Mercedes, which happen to be cars I've got access to, and I could show you some of the things. Mercedes is kind of half one of them really, because you know you do still have a full selection of buttons on there, but obviously you can't see the temperature unless you look at the touch screen, what's on the central screen in this car. But yes, you know, I hope you enjoyed seeing some of those things. I'm sure some of you have got other things that you would find to be particularly annoying, and if so, do leave them in the comments down below. Don't forget to like this video and to subscribe if you haven't already done so. We will be doing a video on, you know, the things I like about modern cars, and that'll be up at some point. But thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching.